Hi, I'm Angela Morton with Recovery's Community NWPA grant projects in Northwestern Pennsylvania through the Rural Communities Opioid Response Program. We're here with Recovery Is, a series to address substance use in our rural area here in Pennsylvania. And I'm here with Dr. Mandy Fauble, who is the Director of Clinical Care Services at UPMC Western Behavioral Health at Safe Harbor in Erie. And as I said, I'm Angela Morton, and I work with the grant consortium on these projects addressing substance use in our area. So we work together and talk with folks on the Recovery Is series to increase awareness of substance use services in the area, to reduce stigma, to get people connected to whatever they need for recovery support, for harm reduction, all these things that we are just going to talk casually about today.
Yeah,
So thanks,
Angela,
Mandy.
I'm so excited to be here as always. And what I noticed is you talked about working with the consortium, but you're a consortium director. So you and I have had the good fortune of working together in leadership roles, with you being the consortium director, me being the project director, to kind of shape what these projects look like in conjunction with local leaders and service providers. But what we find just day to day is that the reason for these projects is because of the substance use disorder and overdose crisis that has impacted Northwest PA. And so it's interesting to me that you mentioned just kind of conversation, because I don't know a family really that has not been impacted by substance use. And I know that you've been out and about lately actually doing some training and creating opportunities to just talk about how to talk about substance use. So can you share a little bit about what you've been doing, and more importantly, kind of how you came to seeing that there was really this need to do this particular training and to lead these conversations?
Well, I think, Mandy, that it started as we have tried to do training around screening and brief intervention and referral to treatment, also known as SBIRT. An evidence-based training that we do throughout the region to promote people of all walks of life, from dentists, doctors, counselors, just to be able to screen for substance use. But as we were doing that, I think a lot of us realized that we're coming from this place where we talk about it every day and it's part of what we do every day. And maybe there was a little bit of a foundation missing, just getting people comfortable talking about drugs, talking about alcohol, talking about addiction. So saying, let's screen people for this when it's sometimes even a hard topic to approach, especially if somebody doesn't know a lot about it or doesn't feel that they maybe bring enough expertise to the conversation. So you could talk to nurses or doctors or counselors, whether like a mental health counselor, talking about substance use that's co-occurring, or maybe a drug and alcohol counselor also trying to address mental health without maybe feeling that they know enough about that subject. So we really wanted to build in that extra layer and kind of a foundation to repeatedly have these conversations to get people more and more comfortable saying, hey, you disclosed here on your chart, or you told your doctor, or I heard you talking, to your husband, your wife, that about your drinking, or that you've disclosed drug use and you've now been here at the doctor's 3 times with your blood sugars really, unstable, or your blood pressure or other health related things. So I think it really just stemmed from us knowing that we need to get more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, so it sounds like, you were finding that even healthcare professionals were uncomfortable having this conversation. Do you have a sense of like what might be behind that? Like where are you hearing people sharing that like fear and discomfort is coming from?
Well, I think there are a few places. I think there are people who can personally relate from maybe their own struggle that they haven't talked about, or family members or friends. I think some of it, admittedly, people have said they have stigma around, well, I have some thoughts about that and what I think people should do or what I want people to do, rather than really promoting the same kind of acceptance for substance use disorder as a diagnosis as any other medical condition. So if a medical practitioner said to me, well, how do I talk to somebody who's using heroin? The same way you would if you're trying to talk to them about their diet and exercise when they have heart disease, or about their consumption of sugar when they're struggling with erratic blood sugars with diabetes. So really just promoting people being very neutral, regardless of how they might think or feel about it, to check that and to be able to treat it like any other medical condition and meet a person where they are and be able to say, I notice this is a piece of your health that we need to talk about.
Yes, yes. And I think that something that I'm really coming to realize over time is how many people are truly impacted by substance use concerns in the United States. So I was reading just over the last couple of days that in 2019, 25% of people 18 and older, so it's like a 1 in 4, reported some type of binge drinking in the last month. But when you look at the number of people who have a substance use concern and who get treatment, it's the estimate is that it's 10% of or less of people that have a substance use disorder that get into treatment. So it makes a lot of sense to me that the numbers are so high that I suspect that many people, including those who work in healthcare, they've had their own personal lives impacted by substances, either that they're using or a family member, a loved one. But also, I think because so many people don't get treatment, we can continue to think of it as like not a medical condition. When you sort of compare, well, if you have diabetes, of course you get treatment. We don't see such low numbers of people getting into treatment for major medical concerns. And so as long as we have so few people not really engaged, we can almost tell ourselves it's like not the same as a medical concern, even though we all know that those folks with substance use disorder are coming in for other types of medical concerns, to your
Absolutely.
point, coming in with high blood pressure or, GI problems or cardiac problems. And it's sort of part of the picture of their total health, but maybe not getting addressed in the same way. So like, what are some of the tips that you've been offering people? Because I think this is something any one of us can kind of take in to just get better at being comfortable with this.
Well, having the privilege of working with people, knowing people, caring about people in recovery, because they're everywhere. Millions of people in the country are on some path, whether a daily path of harm reduction or complete abstinence, the whole range, that people in recovery often say that when they decided to do something about their substance use, like maybe I need some help, maybe this is getting out of my control, or maybe even to the extent of they've had an overdose experience and survived. Um, it's important that when we have these conversations, that people have said, I had to come to it on my own. A lot of people talked to me, a lot of people judged, a lot of people made comments, some made, caring kind of comments, but I really needed to get to a place where I was ready for that, that I knew that it was a problem for me, not for anybody else, and that I was ready to get some help for myself. And so a wise doctor that we've spoken with on one of our other recovery is series had said that addiction is one of the only conditions that one of the symptoms is the denial that you have the symptoms.
Yes.
So it's tricky. And I think you could say the same thing as somebody who is, quote, borderline diabetic. So maybe not quite to that point where they're going to need medication, but they're maybe told to start watching their diet or to lose weight or to get more exercise, but they don't really think it's a problem. Not the same thing, apples and oranges, but enough similarities that when you have those conversations, you have to go into that knowing that you're not here to change a person's life. You're here to care and plant some seeds and mention that you maybe notice that someone is struggling without the expectation that they're going to do what you want. They're going to quit right now because you think they should quit, or that they're going to reduce their use because it bothers you. But to be able to say to somebody, I don't judge. I'm here to recognize that you have something going on and I care about you and I'm here for you in whatever way you need. And if you're met with some defensiveness, then just make your presence known. I'm here when you do need me and back off of it. Or if someone says, I know I've really been struggling and I know I don't really want to talk about it right now, but I'll talk to you sometime about it, versus yes, breaking down and saying, I know it's out of control and I need help. And then saying, let's do it together. Like I'll find the phone numbers for you. let's call the local county drug and alcohol office and just start with a screening to see if you really even need this level of help. So really just going into it with an open mind and not thinking you're going to force anybody to do anything that you think they should do.
Yeah, what's interesting is just as you're talking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Angela, these are like helpful tools for any difficult conversation. We were talking earlier about, families and the holidays or times maybe when you have very strong differences of opinion, whether it's about touchy subjects like money or religion or politics, the ones that really tend to sort of divide people. And the skills that you're getting at are really about, trying to be open enough that if the person is interested in getting help or at a place of readiness for that, or they're curious about it, if they kind of lean into it, that you've created an open enough space that you could potentially persuade them to act on their interest and their curiosity or their readiness by saying something like, yes, I'm glad to help you. We could do this together. But at the same time, being open enough that we don't scare the person off or make them feel judged. But the benefit that I also was kind of getting out of what you were saying is that when we're open about a conversation, kind of knowing it could go in any direction, we are much less likely to take it personally if it doesn't go in the direction that we are hoping. And I think any of us, myself included, I certainly have cared about people that have had substance use disorder. And I'm thinking to myself, how important it is to understand that we can't control another person and to kind of enter a conversation with openness. I think, gosh, I wish that you were around at different times when I struggled to maybe be okay with knowing that I couldn't control what the other person's choices were, because sometimes it's hard to watch, when a person's life is really being negatively impacted. And I think we all know that the heartbreak that we feel, even as a community and as a culture, the absolute utter heartbreak over so many deaths from substance use disorder. But you very gently remind us that we can't control another person. We can provide supportive information and if we're open, we're going to maybe have a better opportunity to actually be helpful if we can engage the person.
Certainly. And I think that's, as you said, across the board. Like we talk to first responders, we talk to behavioral health providers, we talk to people in communities at farmers markets and at malls. And so, yes, our openness, everywhere I go, somebody comes up to me and ends up saying, thank you for talking about it, because I have struggled with substance use, or I became addicted to a medication after an injury or a surgery, or I lost a family member to the disease of alcoholism or to overdose. Everywhere we go, there are stories. And I think as we are open, and let me be clear, there are a lot of people that say, well, I'm not gonna, the word coddle comes out. Like, I don't want to coddle somebody. It's not coddling to care about someone while being aware that, yes, there are some choices being made sometimes that are leading down a path that can be harmful, but being able to recognize that it goes beyond a person's choice. Once they have the disease, the substance use disorder, that it's difficult to make choices when you're not in this space where your brain is functioning the way it should optimally. So yes, people make choices about their substance use, their diet, their exercise, their everything in their lives, but being able to just approach it with, I'm aware there are some issues here, but I'm just here to accept and listen. And if a person doesn't want help and never wants to talk about it again, you respect that, while also saying, I care about you and I worry about you and I'm here when you need me.
Yeah. So you, again, I think very powerfully reminding us of like the everyday conversation skills that we can use for any sensitive topic, where we suspend our judgment if we can, even if we still feel it. We don't have to communicate it, and we know that kind of like that ability to contain ourselves is going to create a space where the other person can come out a little bit more, maybe.
Exactly.
But I think at the same time, you're also reminding us that another reason to sort of be gentle and to lean into these conversations is because when a person is struggling with substance use disorder, they may not be as aware of as what you're seeing, or they may, you said, be maybe in denial still, or struggling with admitting it for whatever reason, or not having the power to make different choices because of the grip that the addiction and the substance itself maybe is having on them. So it's complicated, in terms of the person's ability to utilize the space that you give them. But ultimately, if we don't give people that space, there's really very little odds that they're going to be able to reach out. I think what you're describing is really how to truly be there for a person. And I know, again, as many people who love someone with a substance use disorder have told us, that's a struggle for them. And that's an important thing to be able to talk about, and, to maybe seek self-help supports with other people who are loved ones who are kind of wondering how to engage with the person that they care about who's struggling, or, just to kind of reinforce this by joining support groups or reading up on it, but truly reinforcing this skill and reinforcing the values of creating that open space, Angela, I just feel like is so important.
I think so too, Mandy. And I think I don't want to even give maybe just a tiny tip of an iceberg. I don't want to not do it justice, but we talk about motivational interviewing and we provide training on that. And it's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's working with a person to foster motivation for change, not just with substance use, but really any medical condition.
Mm-hmm.
So back to those conversations where we can help a person sort of briefly, just on the surface, assess their readiness for change or their confidence in their ability to make a change. So if it's somebody who wants to quit smoking cigarettes or vaping or use substances or improve their diet or exercise, helping them find their own ambivalence, that kind of back and forth between I can't live this way anymore and I'm not going to quit right now, or I'm not ready to exercise, but I can't live like this. I feel terrible. So finding that ambivalence and saying, you had just mentioned that this is getting difficult. You can't live this way anymore, but you're not quite ready. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how ready do you think you are? And then if they say, well, I don't know, just probably a 4, what would it take to make it a 5 or 6? Like, what do you need in your life for that to happen? And what is your confidence that you could make it happen? If they say, well, the confidence is an 8. If I put my mind to it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or my confidence is only a 2. I don't think I can. Well, help me understand why. Well, I don't have the support. What could we do to build the supports to build your confidence to kind of match your readiness for that change? So again, that's the tiniest tip of the iceberg of motivational interviewing, but can be really useful in those conversations as well.
Yeah, super useful. And I think, again, what you're describing is really all about like how to make the conversation about another person and to kind of contain yourself enough to like give them the space to explore these issues. So I appreciate this. I think it was like super helpful. And I think on the off chance that, sometimes people do come out and say, you know what, I'm ready to get help now. I know you want to tell everyone where they can go to get that help. You always bring it home with some information about where a person can get treatment, other resources. Maybe we could close up shop there, Angela.
Yes, thanks, Mandy. So we work in Crawford, Venango, and rural Erie counties, but every county in the state of Pennsylvania has a single county authority for substance use treatment, prevention, recovery supports, and case management. So if you call your local county and ask for the substance use program, it's at any of the counties, it's really just starts with a phone call. So I try to dispel that fear too, that people think, well, if I call, does it mean I have to go to rehab? It just means a phone call. So you're just starting with, I have some questions, here's what I'm struggling with, and then follow where that leads, whether you're ready and maybe you want to call back the next day, or whether you say, you know what, I'm ready to do this. Thank you for offering an appointment. I'll come in for an assessment tomorrow and see what I need. So you can call your local county substance use program or drug and alcohol program, but you can also call the national hotline, which is 800-662-HELP. And that is for mental health and substance use disorders. So you choose one or the other and let them know where you are, and they can let you know of services in your area. And of
Thank
course, our
you.
website,
Of course, our website.
www.recoveryisnwpa.org, where we have lots of trainings and other resources and updates on our grant projects.
Angela, thank you for a great conversation today.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us for Recovery Is.